Australia on the inside. Jason Crump next to him in blue, also from Australia. It's Brian Anderson from Denmark from gate 3, and Rudy Holter, the wildcard from Norway. He goes from the outside. Amazingly, this Grand Prix, 7 of the top 10 riders in the world have to start from the first 4 heats. That's the eliminating series. Crump. Sun beating down the land of the midnight sun here in Sweden. Starting marshal moves away. Tapes are held and everybody crashes them, and now we have to wait for the referee's decision because it looks as if Brian Anderson should be excluded on that for crashing the tapes.
Well, I think Jason Crump actually went first. Jason moved and I think he touched the tapes. Brian Anderson then had a go himself and he was the one that broke them, but the first one to touch them I think was blue. We'll see that here on the replay. Jason Crump moves first. It was Jason that touched the tape first, so I would suggest that it would be Jason Crump excluded from this race.
Well, we've got the camera there on Brian Anderson. I just wonder what the rule of referee Wolfgang Glass is. We'll have to wait and hear for the news of who is excluded, but certainly Brian Anderson appears to be disappearing. No, he's going to have something done to his machine. Keep the
bike. We can see that there. He's got a battery there and cooling the clutch down, so he can hopefully make a good start this time.
There's Ole Olsen in the red jacket there, holding his arm to the sun. He's the FIM race director, but Jason Crump certainly having a go at Ole Olsen about this, and Jason Crump does not like the exclusion, and I don't see what he's got to complain about, PC, on the evidence we saw there on the replay.
Well, yeah, it was Brian Anderson that actually broke the tapes, but Jason went first. Jason committed the first offence there by rolling onto that tape and touching that tape, so basically he is the first one to be excluded, and you know, Jason hasn't got a leg to stand on, I don't think, and I can't see the referee bending whatever in this case.
Ron Sullivan, this Grand Prix is one of those 2 wildcard nominations. Our starting marshal goes away this time. They'll be a lot more careful on the tapes here, I'm sure. Ron Sullivan waiting patiently on the inside. Brian Anderson will wait this time. The starting marshal communications with the referee, and now we've got a technical hitch, and Jason Crump has been put back into the race, it seems. Or is this a protest from Jason Crump? The referee's holding everything, and I just wonder what is going on. Communications really appear to have broken down because Jason Crump, it seems, is back in. The referee has the bells going. He doesn't want to go.
Yeah, if Jason has been reinstated here, I'll be very surprised. He's very lucky if he has been. If that referee's put him back in, then he must be so lucky if he's back in.
Well, certainly communication between the referee and the starting marshal. We are not party to that. As we look down on the starting gate, the referee too does as well, and Jason Crump sitting there with his hands on his hips, and I have to tell you, this looks very much like a protest by Jason Crump. He's shaking his head. I'm sure the referee will insist that he shouldn't go, and this could put him in serious trouble, I'm sure, here. Well, I don't know what he has been ordered away here, and I'm sure there's going to be problems here for Jason Crump because the referee insisting upon the decision that Jason Crump is excluded. And I just wonder how the most expensive rider ever in British Speedway will take to this and how it's going to affect him in the rest of the meeting, because he doesn't like the decision of the referee. But as they say in all sports, PC, the referee's decision is final.
It's final, and at this, certainly I think it's correct, Tony.
Well, the protest has been registered by Jason Crump. He'll have another go. These 3 will. They've got to have another start. Ron Sullivan on the inside looks down at the tapes. He keeps it down well. Ron Sullivan picks it up in second place in white. That is Brian Anderson following them around there in the sunshine. Rudy Holter taking a wide line here, but it looks to me as if Ron Sullivan is well and truly in charge.
Yeah, while the track here is wet like this, Tony, Ryan Sullivan is going to ride the inside line as much as he can. Nice and clean down there. He's throwing the mud from the inside to the outside of the circuit, and it's very difficult to make any ground up now for the riders behind.
Ron Sullivan, wheel perfect, having to make into gate cut like a jet he did there, and he's holding it down well. Ron Sullivan, the Aussie, of course, last year finishing very well in the Grand Prix in 8th place overall, but Ron Sullivan here now is going to win this first heat with some comfort here. Ron Anderson's the man who's trailing at the back here, but Ron Sullivan, Rudy Holter, the wild card, doing well. Ron Anderson will have to go again. There's no doubt about who's going to win this one and take the checkered flag. The Australian Ron Sullivan, the 25-year-old from Melbourne, takes it this time. Rudy Holter gets the cheers from Norway in second place in yellow. Disappointment for Brian Anderson. He, like the excluded Jason Crump, will have to go again, because remember, in this format, if you finish in the last 2 twice running, you are out. But this man, Ron Sullivan, takes the checkered flag. A practice start he gets as a bonus here. Started on the inside from Sweden. Joe Screen from Britain goes from gate 2, the Eastbourne rider. Rafał Dobruszki from Poland goes from gate 3. Nicky Pedersen from the outside. This is heat number 2.
To get round the outside if Henrik Gustafsson makes the start.
Been difficult to keep the water on this track, but here we go. This is gate 2, takes up much quicker this time. Coming wide is Gustafsson to pick it up. Round the outside goes to Brusky. Brusky picks up the grip and puts the challenge on. But now coming through in blue there is Joe Screen. A brilliant ride by Joe to pass on the inside. And now go in pursuit of the race leader, Henrik Gustafsson. Tailed off at the rear now, Nicky Pedersen. But the battle is joined up front. Gustafsson going well. Screen has got work to do to chase him.
Well, certainly Gustafsson here, one of the home Swedish riders. He knows this track very, very well. So does Joe Screen. They're both right here in the Swedish League. Joe's been going well over here this year and he's enjoying these Swedish tracks. But Gustafsson really is pulling away from Joe right now.
Bright sunshine, but in the home straight, of course, the shadow covering the riders here. But no doubt about this man. Out front, it's Henrik Gustafsson. Gustafsson ahead of Joe Screen. In third place for Rafael Jabruski. Into the final lap, Nicky Pedersen in yellow and black is tailed off. He will have to go again. But Henrik Gustafsson, a real outsider at 66 to 1, is had a great start here ahead of Joe Screen in blue. Third place, Justin White on the line to Rafael Jabruski, Nicky Pedersen in yellow. It doesn't matter, those two have to race again to stay in the event. But Henrik Gustafsson here, who has so often flattered to deceive in Grand Prix racing from Kumla in Sweden. Hey, rode a couple of meetings for them last year. There on the outside is Andy Smith, the perennial man who gets back into the Grand Prix time and time again, 3 times British champion. It's Greg Hancock on the inside from the United States. Lee Adams from Australia goes from gate 2. Stefan Dano from Sweden, gate 3. And on the gate 3 is Stefan Dano. On the outside, Andy Smith. This is heat 3 here in the Swedish Grand Prix. Linköping hit by sunshine today. Heavy high wind though. Greg Hancock, that second machine going every bit as well perhaps as his first. Pursued on the inside in blue by Lee Adams, but picking it up and going round to the outside there in white is the local man Stefan Dano. Dano knows the track like the back of his hand. Impressive in this stadium last year and now chasing them out front. But certainly Greg Hancock not affected by that disruption early on.
No, certainly the change of bikes hasn't affected him at all. He made a good start. He rode a great first corner to shut the opposition out. Dano was coming round him, but he kept him out. But Dano, we know, is very, very quick round here. We've seen Dano have some very, very good Grand Prix in the past, and he's certainly keeping that distance. He's managing to stay there with Greg Hancock.
Second place will do Stefan Dano to see him march on. It means the man in third and fourth, or the man in third and fourth, will have to go again. But certainly Greg Hancock's not going to have that problem, and he is on his way towards the main event here, because Greg Hancock is going to take the checkered flag in red. In second place in white, it's Stefan Dano. Third in yellow and black there. And it seems Andy Smith, problems indeed for Lee Adams, but certainly no such problems for this man, Greg Hancock, as he takes the checkered flag there. A change of machinery it may be, but the place he expected to get, and Greg...
It's interesting fact here, Tony, but the first 3 races have all been won from gate 1, so can Jimmy Nilsson make a start from gate 2 in this one?
Well, I'm sure the boys back in the studio will be talking about that and track conditions at the end of this heat, because they will have the opportunity. White is Peter Carlson. Red on the inside, Tony Casper. Next to him in blue is Jimmy Nilsson. Outside, there's Brian Carter. That's Brian Carter. Starting marshal walks away. The button is pressed by referee Wolfgang Glass, and now the battle is joined. And Jimmy Nilsson to the fore. Jimmy Nilsson to the cheers of the Swedish fans. Some 12,000 in this stadium will be pleased with this one. In second place in yellow and black, it's Bron Karger, the Danish champion. Won the title a couple of weeks back. Third in white's Peter Carlson. Tailed off at the rear is Tony Casper. Casper coming through into third place. Carlson comes again. Battle at the back, but out front, it's Jimmy Nilsson all the way.
Yeah, a lot of people here have been talking about Jimmy Nilsson, how well he's going, but just look there, Tony Casper's coming round the outside to take that third place, but Jimmy's riding really, really well on these Peter Johns tuned GMs.
Well, there is Jimmy Nilsson down the back straight. Jimmy Nilsson certainly going well. In yellow there is Bron Karger. That's the battle. He's coming through there into second place. But certainly Jimmy Nilsson is stretching that lead ahead of Bron Karger. Bron Karger, the Danish champion. Peter Carlson is struggling. Tony Casper is struggling. Both of those will have to go again. But Jimmy Nilsson is certainly looking good there in blue. Jimmy Nilsson takes that ahead of Bron Karger in yellow. I think Peter Carlson in white just getting third place there. ahead of in red Tony Casper in last place, but Jimmy Nielsen went away from the tapes, and Jimmy Nielsen, once he gets in that, Lee Adams from Australia goes from gate 2, Nicky Pedersen from Denmark goes from gate 3, and on the outside, Tony Casper from the Czech Republic. Still an asset of Eastbourne is Tony Casper, son of a famous father. His father many times Czech champion, racing in Britain this year. This is Lee Adams, one of the most successful riders in Britain at the moment at King's Lynn. Yellow there is Tony Casper. Up go the tapes and away they go. Anderson on the inside, challenged by in blue Lee Adams. Adams picks up pole position here, now down the back straight. Round the outside in yellow is Casper. Casper goes by him the long way round, and well, we have a race on our hands here, PC.
That's right, there must be some grip appearing now on the outside, because Casper came from that outside position and rode right round the whole field on the first turn, and tucked in behind him is Lee Adams. So these two will qualify for the next stage if they can hold these positions, and the last two will go out.
It'll be real disappointment for Brian Anderson, because he has work to do, but Tony Casper is leading in this one. He did it round the outside. Lee Adams isn't going to be done. Lee Adams is going to challenge him all the way. It looks as if these two are going to march on, and the men that go out will be disappointing for the Danes, because it'll be two of them. It's Tony Casper. Casper, the challenge is on. Casper is fast, he's furious. Adams is certainly keeping with him. Disappointment for the Danes at the back. But the Danes that have moved the short distance here across the sea to Linköping will be very, very disappointed. But no such disappointment for Tony Casper there in yellow, finishing in front of Lee Adams in blue. Those two march on. It means that Pedersen and Anderson can go home. But Tony Casper, as we've seen him many times before, has come from behind to be desperately disappointed first time out. With that strike in the tapes, we know he protested. Rafael Dobruski from Poland goes from the inside. It's Peter Carlson from Sweden from gate 2. Jason Crump in white from Australia, one of the world's top riders, goes from the gate 3, and from the outside, who is it? Andy Smith. Try, and try again to stay in the Grand Prix series.
Yeah, get in the top 2 to get qualified for the next stage.
So we're looking at heat number 6. We look down at the tapes. The starting box has gone away they go. Away on the inside is Rafael Dobruski. Crump has work to do round the outside. Crump does the work. Crump picks up the grip. Crump goes round the outside, and Crump looks the class rider he is, picking the field off, and now surely will sail away.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Tony, this is Jason's first lap of the circuit with missing that first race, so the track's new to him, but certainly he got a great run round that first turn to head the pack as they went down the back straight.
Jason Crump in front, no problems whatsoever. Second place now belongs to the Pole, Rafael Dobruski. Back in third place is Andy Smith, which will surely mean he will go home. Peter Carlson hasn't far to go home. The Swede lives just down the road here, but look at this ride by Jason Crump, because Jason Crump is stretching that lead by every turn of his wheel, and certainly he's looking the class rider we know he is. And I just wonder, the lads back in the studio be watching this and knowing only too well what Jason Crump can do. His teammate Craig Boyce, I wonder if Jason Crump will go all the way in this one, because Jason Crump takes that in white ahead of Rafael Dobruski. They both stay in. I'm afraid to say that Peter Carlson and Andy Smith go home, but what a ride by Jason Crump, Peter.
Oh, I'm sure Jason will be glad to get...
Greg Hancock goes from gate 2. Both of those heat winners, respectively, heats 1 and 3. Joe Screed, who came second in heat 2 from Britain and Eastbourne, he goes from gate 3, and on the outside, it's Brian Carger, the Danish champion. Remember, we've already lost 2 Danes in Nicky Pedersen and Brian Anderson. I'm sure Carger won't want to make it 3. Another chance if he goes out before we move through to the main event. There we go, and on the inside in red there, picking up, that's Ron Sullivan. In blue, that's Greg Hancock. Joe Screen at the back at the moment, certainly has work to do there, but not so much work of the man in yellow and black, Brian Carger. But look at the battle here between Ron Sullivan in red on the inside there. In blue, that's Greg Hancock. They are going wider and wider on this track, coming in tight on the bends, but picking up the dirt at that point, PC.
Yeah, the fast line is definitely moving out now, there's no doubt about that. We saw the earlier races won by riding so close to the white line, but now they're moving out towards the fence, and the race is certainly speeding up, Tony.
These two, Ron Sullivan from Melbourne, Australia, Greg Hancock from California, the USA. Those are the front two. Joe Screen's back in third place. He will have to go again to stay in this event, but these two will automatically march on to the main event, and certainly they've shown their speed in this one. Important from the gate. They've got the right race line all the way round. Greg Hancock is now coasting in second place. Ron Sullivan there in the red helmet colours knows that he will take the checkered flag. In blue there, Hancock gets a chance to look back. Screen finishes third in white. Carger will go with him in the repechage, as they say, to stay in the event. But certainly the front two, Ron Sullivan from Melbourne, Australia, has taken the checkered flag in that one. His second heat victory of the night. Remember, on the inside, Nielsen gate 2, Holter gate 3, Dano gate 4. Three Swedes, Norwegian in gate 3. Starley Marshall walks away as we look head on at them, away from the tapes. And again, from the inside, Gustafsson battles with Nielsen. Nielsen will pick it up down here because he has the racing line, and does. He got it absolutely right. Holter goes backwards into second place, goes Gustafsson, and now the race is on.
Yeah, Jimmy Nielsen certainly likes to ride from the front, and just look at that, he's got a 20-metre lead already over Stefan Dano, who's following, but he's just really going quick, Jimmy Nielsen. He really loves this circuit.
The battle is joined there in second place. Gustafsson just heads Stefan Dano. Holter has to battle. Coming through is Holter in white now there. Holter is in second place behind Jimmy Nielsen and putting a challenge. I missed that because René Holter came through from nowhere. But Jimmy Nielsen is certainly in charge in this one. Jimmy Nielsen will go through to the main event. So too will René Holter, the wild card, the Gold Bar winner recently. René Holter will go through as well, and wild cards going through to the main event is something we look to spring surprises. But Jimmy Nielsen is absolutely wheel perfect to take that. Jimmy Nielsen wins that in blue ahead of René Holter in white. Those two march on. I have to tell you that Stefan Dano and Henrik Gustafsson sometimes little things go wrong, as we heard from Gary Havlock in the studio. He didn't start the season too brightly, but he looked super at Coventry in midweek. On the outside in yellow and black is Stefan Dano. A tough one, PC.
Certainly is. It's always the same when two riders are going to go out from this, and you know, you don't want to be in that third and fourth position no matter what, and I'm sure Screeny is really hoping that he can get in that top two.
Casper then on the inside, Dobrushki next to him. Joe Screen coming up to tapes in gate 3. Starley Marshall walks away. Sun going down here in Linköping. Away we go on the inside in red. It's Casper. Screen is sandwiched. Screen will have to come back. Racing line is tough to find for him at the back. Joe Screen has a lot of work to do now, but look at this effort, because out front in red there is Tony Casper. In second place in yellow and black, that's Stefan Dano, the Swedish favourite. Joe Screen is battling. Joe Screen will go wide. Joe Screen will pick up the grip, and Joe Screen will try to go by. The gate being closed on him there by Stefan Dano, but all is not lost for the battling Joe Screen.
Yeah, Joe's got on the outside run now. He's used it twice. He's just going past Dano. He's managed already to get past Casper, but Casper's out in front. Casper's now in front with Joe Screen second.
Joe Screen is there. Joe Screen has made it to the point. He picked up the good racing line too late. Stefan Dano will go out. Joe Screen pursuing Tony Casper. Casper a past Eastbourne rider. Joe Screen a present Eastbourne rider. Stefan Dano in third place, a past but current Eastbourne asset. But the man that's going to win this is going to be Tony Casper. Joe Screen has battled all the way. Joe Screen finishes behind Tony Casper, and Joe Screen keeps the Union Jack flying as he moves on to the main event. I'm afraid to say, for Stefan Dano and Rafael Dobrushki, it is time to go home. Stefan on the inside in red. Lee Adams goes in blue from gate 2. From Sweden, Henrik Gustafsson from gate 3. And on the outside, Ron Carger, the current Danish champion. 2 Australians, a Swede and a Dane. Remember, 2 have to go out, and 2 will march on to the main event. Todd, there in white, that is Henrik Gustafsson. And he's got work to do, the Swede, of course. The Dane, Ron Carger, outside in there. Away go the tapes, up on the inside. Jason Crump picks it up again, and when Crumpy gets to that position, I'm sure that he won't lose that. Going with him round the outside, it's Lee Adams, but look at the pressure being put on Adams by Henrik Gustafsson. Adams picks up the racing line, I think. Gustafsson misses the turn, and now Adams will go in pursuit of Crump, and it's Aussies 1 and 2 ahead of the Swede Gustafsson and Carger at the back.
Yeah, Gustafsson caught a bit of a bump there, and his challenge was over. He got it all wrong in the middle of that pit turn, and now the 2 Aussies are first and second. Jason Crump in the red, followed by Lee Adams, and if they can consolidate this and just hold on to this, they will move into the main event, Tony.
Remember, Ron Sullivan has also already made it there. Todd Wiltshire is going to appear in the main event. 4 Aussies could be in the main event if it stays like this, because this is Australia 1 and 2. Crump in red, Adams in blue. But certainly it's disappearing time for the Swede Gustafsson and the Dane Brunkarga down the straight there, and certainly really now they've got time in hand, speed in hand, and certainly placings in hand as they take the checkered flag. Certainly in red, Jason Crump ahead of Lee Adams in blue. They march on to the main event. Henrik Gustafsson and Brunkarga are out of this one, and another good ride by Jason Crump. I have to say, Peter, that little tragedy he had when he hit the tapes early on, Zero straight into the main event. Gate 3 is Ron Sullivan, the fastest man tonight here, over 4 laps in Heat 7. He put up the fastest time, the 3rd fastest too in Heat 1. And on the outside, Rene Holter, the wild card, the form man from Norway. Guns are here. Remember, 8 riders have departed. There's our starting marshal. He moves away on the instructions of the referee. The riders look down at the tapes, up by those tapes, and on the inside, Billy Hamill picks it up. And look at Carl Stonehewer. Carl Stonehewer got the drop on Billy Hamill, and now he's pursued by that fast man, Ron Sullivan, round the outside. Sullivan going speed. He's keeping the same line as they have in recent heats, going wide, and now work to do for Billy Hamill in 3rd place. Yeah,
Billy Hamill had the quickest time of the pre-meeting, and he certainly went round Carl Stonehewer very well there, but Carl Stonehewer's going to have his work cut out to keep Billy Hamill behind him. Billy's trying all the way, but Carl might be able to hang on.
Halfway stage here with Ron Sullivan out front. Remember, Ron Sullivan has won both heats so far that he's raced in, and he's looking fast and furious in this one. But the battle is for 2nd place now. Ron Sullivan will march on. Carl Stonehewer has surprised many of us in Prague. Can he do it again here at Linköping? He locks up a little here. He's going to be put under pressure, and he is. The race in 2nd place. Don't worry what's happening out front, because it's all happening right here. And look at Holter coming round. Well, the 2nd place goes in the end to Carl Stonehewer, but only just. A great ride by the man out front, Ron Sullivan. But what an effort in blue by Carl Stonehewer, because the challenge on that last lap was serious on the inside from Billy Hamill.
Very tight gap, almost takes Carl's hand off the handlebar, but Carl resorts himself out again. He manages to get back in the hunt. Then we can see later in the race again, here's what happened. Carl's arm was right in the way there of Ryan Sullivan as Ryan came down the outside. And again here on the bottom turn, Billy Hamill's mounting a big charge on Carl Stonehewer. Carl lifts, and then in the same place, Billy Hamill does the identical move, and coming round the outside very quickly is Rune Holter. But
Gate 2, that is Michael Carlson, the younger of the 2 Carlsons. Jimmy Nielsen goes from Gate 3, and Greg Hancock from the USA goes from the outside. This is going to be a tough one for them all, Peter.
And really, Mark's got to get out of that gate.
Heat 12, Mark Aram on the inside. Wait for the tapes to go up. They're delayed again by referee Wolfgang Glass, but Mark Aram gets it away here. Speed on the outside from Greg Hancock in yellow, but look at in red. Mark Aram picks it up. Trailing back is Jimmy Nielsen in white. Trailing further in yellow is Greg Hancock, but Mark Aram's in front of Michael Carlson in blue. Coming through and battling on the inside is Jimmy Nielsen, but Mark Aram is away. Mark Aram has the racing line, and Mark Aram won't get beaten from here, surely.
Well, this is just what Mark needs. This is his first ride. He needs to learn the track. What better place to learn it from the front? And we don't often see Mark make good starts like that, but just look at him now. He's got fresh air in front of him, and he's riding brilliantly.
Mark Aram doing exactly what Peter Collins said. Make it from the gate to the inside, go wide on the racing line, and pull away from the others. And that's exactly what Mark Aram is doing here. Quite a battle in place behind him, but leading at the moment, Michael Carlson to the cheers of the Swedes. But Jimmy Nielsen is back in last place. Disappointment for him. He and Greg Hancock now in 3rd place will have to battle again and come back. But these two will march on. Mark Aram in red, Michael Carlson in blue. And certainly from their point of view, well, they've got... Well, they couldn't have started better, Peter, could they? And Mark Aram, we said so much about him in Prague when in pain, but now he's much fitter. He's from the inside in red. Tony Rickardson, the world champion from Sweden in blue. Tony Kasper, 66-1 outsider for the Czech Republic, goes in gate 3. And Lee Adams, the Australian from races for Kings Lynn back in Britain, he's in the yellow helmet colours and goes from the outside. Heat 13, remember.
He's champion and he's been riding fabulous this year.
Chris Louis in form. Lee Adams in form on the outside, one of the leading average scorers at the moment in the British League, racing for Kings Lynn. A Away they go. Louis comes wide, picked up in blue by Tony Ricardson. Ricardson goes where Ram did earlier to pick up the racing line round the outside. In red, Chris Louis is in second place. Work to do for Lee Adams in third. Adams making ground indeed on Chris Louis there. Way at the back now is a disappointing Tony Kasper. But out front, the world champion is showing that world class in his home country. A Swedish Grand Prix for the top Swede. And look at Tony Ricardson out front while they battle here. That's Chris Louis in red. But really, Tony Ricardson is looking fast and furious, and it's his first ride.
Yeah, Tony is looking so sharp, and Chris Lewis tucked in behind him there, but Chris is coming under quite a bit of pressure here from Lee Adams. Lee really needs to get amongst things in this GP, but Chris Louis started off very well, and I think if he can get this and hang on to this second place, he'll be happy with that to get his first ride out of the way and progress.
Look at Tony Ricardson, the world champion, the number one on his race jacket, is looking absolutely brilliant. Chris Louis will get second place here in red and does so. Third in yellow and black goes to Lee Adams, who will have to battle again, and certainly so too will Tony Kasper in last place. But the speed, the track positioning, knowing exactly the right racing line, and Tony Ricardson justifying the favouritism at 9. Certainly that was some ride. Todd Wiltshire from Australia goes on the inside straight through to the main event, as does Thomas Golov from Poland in blue. Jason Crump has qualified after that real hiccup in his first outing when he got excluded for hitting the tapes. And Joe Screen goes from the outside in yellow and black after that fantastic ride in Heat 9 to come through in his second place. A real battle that was. This
a new piece of track for him, all grip to the first corner, and we'll see if he can get away ahead of Thomas Golov in the blue.
We know what they have to do, but it's going to be mighty close next to Thomas Golov because they'll be going for the same racing line coming out of that bend. Away they go. Well, there they do, the two battle. Golov picks up the racing line he was looking for. Wiltshire's back in third place. Look at that round the outside in white from Jason Crump. Crump has come from nowhere. Joe Screen is back in third place. Thomas Golov second, and Wiltshire has gone right to the back from first to last. But Jason Crump, forgetting his problems early on, he's going wider and wider, faster and faster, and he's looking very good here.
Yes, he is. To make the start from the outside against this opposition is unbelievable. We know all the grip is out there on the outside, and Jason is using it there. It is so grippy. There's a lot of dirt on the track here tonight, and Jason's really using it to the best of his ability, Tony.
And if he finishes first in this one, he will join those three Brits in Heat 18. Time to look back here for Thomas Golov in a comfortable second place. Behind the man in white, Jason Crump out front. Jason Crump is looking very fast indeed, having got through with 2 heat victories here and looking good here now. Thomas Golov riding, one believes, with some comfort here, and Thomas Golov takes second place in front of, only just in front there of Todd Wiltshire, with Joe Screen tailed off at the back. Disappointment for Joe, he'll have to go again. Jason Crump knows about that effort. He knows how good he is. Look at the shake of the fist for the Oscar on the outside of Joe Screen. And Joe Screen, Peter, is going to produce something special from that gate if he's going to stay in.
You're dead right, Tony. If he doesn't do anything in this one, he's on the way home, and it's going to be tough, but...
The British League that's in this one is Joe Screen at the moment, and he'll be there surely soon for Eastbourne, for whom he's riding now, and riding well at the current time. There's the lineup, looking down, Billy Hamill on the inside, Lee Adams in blue, in white it's Jimmy Nilsson, Joe Screen on the outside. Starling Marshall gets them up to tapes. Referee Wolfgang Glass looking down from above. German FIM official in charge in Linköping tonight. Starling Marshall walks away. The riders look towards the magnets. They're released and up go the tapes, and now they fly to the first bend of the man in blue there. Lee Adams is chasing. Billy Hamill goes wide. Coming through on the inside is Jimmy Nilsson. Oh, there, the first spill of the evening, and tumbling down there in blue is Lee Adams. I wonder if the referee will stop it. He's in the middle of the track. He's got to do so, and I think that Lee Adams will probably be excluded, but it'll be interesting to see exactly how that happened, because Lee Adams looks in some pain there. The race stopped by our referee Wolfgang Glass. We'll find out exactly who he decides caused it, but Lee Adams, by the expression on his face there, doesn't think it was he. Let's have a look at this round to the halfway stage of the lap with PC.
Well, this is the start. There's Jimmy Nilsson. He lifts a little bit on the start. That's Jimmy in the white. Next to him, Lee Adams in the blue, but certainly in the red helmet at this point. Billy Hamill's made that good start. When they're coming to the exit from the corner, Billy's got a slight lead. Now all three riders seem to get there at the same time, and just on the outside there, Lee Adams catches the back wheel there of Billy Hamill. Billy ran Lee very wide into the bottom of the fence there, and Lee's gone down very heavily there, and really, Tony, was very lucky to walk away with that. We can see that again. Billy has run Lee Adams very wide. Billy's run out of track. Lee's run out of track and gone down there very heavily on the back straight. And I think really Billy took him quite wide there and was very hard with Lee.
We should explain this safety fence here now. It's rather like a sort of airbag in a car as they come against it. But the referee has decided all 4 riders who should go back in. Now, back in the British League, of course, first bend Bunchy, he can do that. That coming out of the second bend, he's allowed all 4 back in, subject to fitness, of course, and riders and machines. And there we see that airbag-type safety fence to the rescue and certainly saving Lee Adams from worse damage.
Well, you know, Lee caught that fence for sure, but as he went down, he landed very heavily on the track itself with the bike on top of him. That kind of fall usually is maybe a shoulder dislocation or a broken collarbone or even worse, and I think Lee's very lucky to have got away with that. The track actually took the full impact of Lee's weight when he hit there, although on the bottom, because we can see the rider's footrest there. Well, that's what would hit the fence first, and that kickboard is to stop that footrest jamming in the fence. Now, when Lee gets to that point, you see his footrest runs along the board, and the fence barely touches his body and puts him back onto the track, but that would have been a bad crash really in any event, and like I say, we're lucky to see walking back to the pits.
Well, let's see just one ride from the semi-final. This is heat 15. Starley Marshall tries to get him up close to Tatus. Joe Screen looking to creep a little bit, I think. There we go, away they go. Joe Screen left on the outside, now picking up at the apex of the bend is Lee Adams. This time Adams is in front, showing no ill effect from that spill. He goes away down the straight, pursuing it in the red helmet colours is Billy Hamill. Joe Screen is struggling, Joe Screen is lifting, Joe Screen is off, but into the fence goes his bike. Joe Screen is down. Our referee will have to stop this one, and I can't see any way that Joe Screen can be left in this, and certainly real disappointment for Joe here. I don't know what happened. He lifted, he picked up a bit of grip, and that could be his swan song here, PC.
Yeah, we've seen quite a few riders lift on the inside. There looks to be a rut down there. We can see some riders have done the same thing, wheelied around the turn, and what happened, Joe? Just got a little bit too much grip as he was trying to come alongside Billy Hamill, lifted and then collected the rear wheel of Billy. We can see this here. Joe catches all that grip, did very well to control it, but look at that. As soon as you catch that back wheel of Billy, you just go down straight in the wrong direction. The bike turns right and heads straight to the safety fence, and Joe did very well to get off that bike, and he did extremely well to hold it before he even touched Billy's wheel there. That's a typical speedway crash. When you clip a rear wheel, you've really got no chance. It throws you off to the right of the bike, but that air fence there, just look at the way that bike was stopped by that fence, and again we see the fence has done a great job, and Joe, he's uninjured. Joe didn't actually hit the fence, but it was quite a hairy crash there, a hairy moment for Joe, and I'm sure his heart was in his mouth at one point. There, at that point there, he just lost that front wheel, and he's gone straight off into the fence there. The bike caught that air fence, but I'm sure that Joe Screen will be excluded for being the...
There were 3, as they say. Billy Hamill on the inside of Lee Adams and Jimmy Nilsson. Now 2 march on, 1 goes home to join Joe Screen. But more room on the track this time, PC, and that may make a difference in that first bend. The fans out behind them on gate 3 is Jimmy Nilsson from Sweden. It's Billy Hamill from the USA. Lee Adams from Australia. Jimmy Nilsson from Sweden. 12,000 crowd here in the Motor Stadium of Linköping, watching the action. Now on the inside here, but cutting across well is Lee Adams. Adams picks it up, goes out to the racing line, followed by Billy Hamill in his tracks. Jimmy Nilsson comes through in second place, picks up some grip from somewhere there, and now Hamill will have to battle to come through, and is trying to do so. But Lee Adams out front now is stretching that lead. The Australian knows where he's going, and the Australian is getting faster. And what a battle we have in second place, because 2 talented riders, PC, are trying to stay in this.
Yeah, I mean, are we going to see Billy Hamill go out here, the winner of the first GP in Prague? He must be riding for his life here, for his GP life, but he's got a good run around the outside of Jimmy, but Jimmy, he's a hard man to pass. He's probably got eyes in the back of his head, and he's right in the way of Billy right now.
Could do with wing mirrors there for Jimmy Nilsson, but still they've got a lap to go here now, and look out front, Lee Adams is very, very fast. and still Billy Hamill is trying. Look at Billy Hamill here. Billy Hamill, Jimmy Nielsen comes back at him. Oh, and did Jimmy Nielsen take him down? Will the referee see it that way, or will he say that Hamill was being too ambitious? The race is finished. There's no doubt about the winner, Lee Adams, ahead of Jimmy Nielsen. But Billy Hamill is absolutely furious. He looked to me to be going by Jimmy Nielsen, and then all of a sudden, look, as Billy Hamill says, what could I do about that? Peter, I just wonder about that. We know that Lee Adams is through, but what can the referee do about that now?
Well, you know, Jimmy Nielsen, you know, he's a bit of a hard man on the track there, and he was a bit hard with Billy, but it's going to be down to the referee what he feels about it, because Billy certainly feels as though he had the injustice done to him there. Look at Jimmy, comes across the front of Billy and basically takes Billy's line and everything, pushes him straight into that fence. But again, you know, what a marvellous thing that safety fence is, because Billy went in there very hard. There you can see Billy was actually in front just before Jimmy snatched his line. I think that was a desperate move there from Jimmy. Jimmy just ran straight into the side of Billy, and Billy had got no chance of turning. And if I was the referee, I would exclude Jimmy Nielsen for that manoeuvre. We can see it there from this angle. Jimmy knows exactly, he knows that Billy is on the outside, and he really did take his line.
I have to tell you, Peter, that the referee says the result stands, and I'm sure that won't be the last we hear of that. 3 riders in Heat 15, all hitting the safety fence, and Billy Hamill on the phone to the referee is absolutely furious. And I think our referee, Wolfgang Glass, if he saw what we did there, and maybe he was just following the front man, he must have seen what you did, Peter, and really Billy Hamill had absolutely no chance at all.
No, it wasn't as though that Jimmy Nielsen didn't know Billy was there. Jimmy knew exactly where Billy was, and to just ride into the side of him like that and leave him certainly high and dry with nowhere to go at the fastest point of the track as you enter the corner is dangerous. And
outside, Tony Casper, the outside in the betting, the only man above 50 to 1 to go through into the main event here at 66 to 1 is the betting against Tony Casper on the outside. Remember, Casper still an Eastbourne asset. Rune Holter from Norway, the wild card, just inside him. Gate 2 is Todd Wiltshire on the inside, Greg Hancock.
yeah,
Meeting so far full of incident. The inside, Greg Hancock. Todd Wiltshire from Australia next to him. White, Rune Holter from Norway. Tony Casper from the Czech Republic, near his camera here. They all look down now at the magnets. They're released. On the inside well is Greg Hancock. Hancock has Todd Wiltshire alongside him. Waiting is Rune Holter. Holter picks it up and goes through on the inside. The speed is picked up though by Wiltshire in blue. Pursued now by Greg Hancock. Holter goes again. Hancock in third place picks up the racing line. The battle is joined now behind Todd Wiltshire. They're going to battle in second place, but Wiltshire looks to have command out front now. And that's how it is down the back straight.
Yeah, Todd Wiltshire didn't look particularly good in his first ride, but he seems to have got everything together right now. He's probably geared the bike up a little bit, made a grand first corner there to pull out in front, and certainly to be ahead is marvellous. But just look at Rune Holter there, probably one of the only Norwegians to be riding very successfully at the moment, and certainly is mixing it with the big boys and not phased whatsoever.
While certainly Rune Holter, who came from nowhere to get to this stage, coming round the outside, but now at the back, Hancock looks to have stopped. And Hancock's got problems. He's down, the race is stopped, and he's joining Billy Hamill as another man to visit that safety fence. But our referee lets it go on here, and it's won by the rider in blue, Todd Wiltshire, ahead of Rune Holter in white. And the last two are eliminated, and in the last heat a world champion in Billy Hamill was eliminated. In this heat a world champion in Greg Hancock, who we see there, is also out. He will not be in the main event next time. He will have to start from the early heats, and real disappointment for Greg Hancock there in red, ahead or behind rather Tony Casper, but they both go out and Hancock doesn't get too many GP points.
Yeah, that was certainly a strange one there, that Greg on the outside in the red, he's just gone too wide, he's run totally off the racing line, probably got a little bit too much grip going into the corner, because that bit that he's riding on there is very deep and very heavy, and he's ended up heading straight at the fence and basically had to bail out. And sad end for Greg really, that he's going for an early bath, because you can see there he's looking there at that outside, and very, very disappointed to have gone out at this stage, and he isn't going to be in the semi-finals, Tony. Top two in this race will go into the two semi-finals, and the bottom two are going to have to go to the last heat shootout, and it's going to be very, very tough. And certainly with Thomas Golov on the outside, we know this man can do anything on that bike, and certainly very controversial, a lot of ability and a lot of speed, and I'm very, very interested to see what he's going to do from the outside. He's going to be steaming round the outside.
Let's look at this. Tactically, could be one of the most interesting heats of the night. Away they go. Golov gets the fly, but look at the man in blue, Tony Ricardson. Golov is blocked, certainly here now. Ryan Sullivan comes through. Golov battles through the inside. Golov showing his class here, but so too is Tony Ricardson in blue. Golov's moved into second place. Sullivan is back in third. White at the back is Michael Carlson. The big guns are going at it.
Yeah, fantastic manoeuvre there from Thomas Golov to come from last. Bad start in the first turn to chop back and join Tony Ricardson there in first and second place. And now Golov is getting the run round the outside. He knows this second place is going to be good enough to progress into the semis, and I'm sure he's going to settle for this and just hope that he can keep Ryan Sullivan behind him.
Tony Ricardson, absolutely superb. Not racing in Britain this year, but that certainly hasn't dulled his ability, his speed, and certainly his track craft here down the back straight. That is Tony Ricardson stretching that lead ahead of Thomas Golov, first and second in the World Championship last year. On the inside, the pressure on Golov, but it's not going to be enough. Golov takes second place ahead of Ryan Sullivan in third, and certainly Michael Carlson in last place. He and Ryan Sullivan will have to battle again, but Thomas Golov joins Tony Ricardson, this man here with the checkered flag. 2 races, 2 wins. Remember, Tony Ricardson won heat 13.
It's fabulous ride from Tony, and he seems to be streets ahead of everybody else at the moment. That is Tony Ricardson. He's changed to the Italian GM machines this year, but when they get to the first corner on the outside, Thomas Golov in the yellow has missed it completely. But just look at this manoeuvre. He's last right now, but he chops back up the inside. He takes the rider in white, Michael Carlson. There on the outside is Tony Ricardson and Ryan Sullivan, but there into the picture comes Golov on the inside and just sneaks into that second place, and a fantastic manoeuvre there from him. We can see it again there from this overhead camera. He's on the outside. Now this is a classic speedway manoeuvre. He looks, chops back right down to the white line there, gets the wheels in line first and just dives straight up into that second place to follow Tony Ricardson home for that semi-final place. Hey, well, I've got Chris Louis in the sweep, so you know, I'll be possibly hoping he's going to do well. But you know, Mark Laram on that inside. Mark did so well in the Prague GP, and we're all sort of behind Mark, as we are Carl Stonier and Chris, so they've got to get in there. But Jason Crump, the way he was going, they're going to have the work cut out, that's for sure.
Been a long haul for him, but he's the man in form at the moment. Jason Crump in blue there, as you can see in the background, and in yellow is Chris Louis. White behind him, Carl Stonehill. Inside, Mark Laram. Up go the tapes. Ram gets a great start here, but look at the battle as in blue Jason Crump takes his man wide, but Crump now goes round the outside and Crump picks it up, coming through on the inside. In second place is Stonehill, but the battle is joined by Laram. Laram and Crump are going to battle all the way. This is a classic. Stonehill is not giving up, but Crump has the right line. Here comes Laram again, the meat in the sandwich. What a race as Crump goes down the back straight. Stonehill is not going to be outdone, and at the back, well, who's going to win this one?
You know, Carl Stonier is getting some good grip low down there. He's now moved ahead of Mark Laram, so he's pushed Mark back into third, but Mark's trying all the way. Mark was very brave there that he didn't catch Carl Stonier's back wheel.
Well, we could have Carl Stonehill through to the semi-finals again. Mark Laram may have to try again, but Jason Crump is going wider and wider, faster and faster, and the Workington man from the British Premier League, Carl Stonehill, is still in second place, and Mark Laram is having another go to try and go by him. What a race we have here in second place. The Ram's now trying the outside. It may not be good enough. Yes, it is. He picks up the speed, and the Ram just gets second place there behind Jason Crump and ahead of Carl Stonehill. Stonehill will try again. Crump and the Ram are through to the semi-finals. Chris Louis too will have to try again. We saw some classic speedway racing.
Mark Laram was unbelievable. Here's the start. Jason Crump makes a good one there. He puts his leg out right across the front of Mark Laram. Looks at this point as though Mark Laram's leading, but Mark has got to turn quite tight there. Almost catches the back of Jason Crump there on the turn. Here it is again. Jason Crump gives Chris Louis a bit of a push very wide. Mark Laram's holding the inside, but like we said, when you're on the inside, you've got to turn very, very sharply, and that's allowed Carl Stonehewer to cut back right on the inside, and it took Mark the whole race basically to shake off the challenge from Carl Stonehewer. Carl was in there getting nice grip on the inside of the circuit. You can see there's some nice grip low down where Carl's riding that a lot of the others have forgotten about. Carl's riding a totally different track to everybody else. His front wheel is right down low near that racing line. When he gets to coming out of the turn, he's just got a bit of speed there, keeps his back wheel tight on that black dirt, and he's really giving Mark Laram a massive run for his money. And Mark Laram now coming around the outside where we know he loves to be, but he certainly didn't look dominant there in that race, but he's just got enough speed on the last turn to edge ahead of Carl Stonehewer.
Some classic passing by Mark Laram in the end. There he is, going round Carl Stonehewer. I have to say that it took him a long while to hit the same racing line as Jason Crump, but when he did, he went almost as fast. And really now, this is building up to a fitting climax here in Linköping, now under floodlights. And I have to tell you, we're going to see some classic racing, I'm sure, in the semis, but we've yet to get there, although, well, 4 riders know they're there, but some survivors to get through to earn his place in gate 1 here. Chris Louis on the outside. It's going to be tough for him outside Ron Sullivan, Peter. Yeah,
Chris has been a bit late coming out onto the track. He certainly had a bad last ride, and he's probably been making some big adjustments to his bike, and he's hoping that he's going to get it right in this, because certainly if he doesn't finish in the top 2, he's going home as well, and it's his last chance really to get into this top 8, so I'm sure that he's been changing things.
Sheer speed will decide it. Sheer placement will decide it. Twilight descending. There in red is Lee Adams, the Australian. And Halter's next to him. In white it's Ron Sullivan. Chris Louis here in front of us on the outside. Gate 2 has won the last 4 heats. The man in blue here is Rudy Halter. He'll have to work hard here because the man on the inside is Lee Adams coming through. Lee Adams is having time to look back. Look at the pressure being exerted here now by the very fast Ron Sullivan. Sullivan trying to pick it up and go the short way round. Sullivan is mounting a challenge. Sullivan could get to the semi-finals here. The man in blue, Rudy Halter, is going to struggle. At the back, it's Chris Louis. It looks as if Chris Louis will go home and will have to take a part in the eliminating stages in the next event, because out front now here, the challenge has been mounted again by Ron Sullivan, who's showing his speed, but Adams is looking set for a semi-final place here.
Yeah, the 2 Aussies look as though they're both going through. Certainly Lee Adams is riding a good race here, keeping Ryan Sullivan just behind him. Halter's having a go, but poor old Chris Louis at the back looks like his night's over.
Well, certainly Craig Boyce back in our studio be pleased with the effort of these front 2. Lee Adams from Mildura, Ron Sullivan from Adelaide has time to look back, but he looks back to 3rd place where he sees the man in blue who goes wide, Rudy Halter. But the victory goes, the semi-final place, to Lee Adams in red ahead of Ron Sullivan in white. Rene Halter gets 3rd place. He can go home. So too, sadly, can Chris Louis. But 2 Australians march on to the semi-finals. The lineup: Todd Wiltshire from Australia on the inside. Jimmy Nielsen from Sweden, controversially through to this stage. After that, Barney with Greg Hancock. Carl Stonehewer goes from gate 3 in white. The outside, it's Michael Carlson. Keaton has emigrated to Sweden. Linköping, the home. Carl Stonehewer, the man in white. Starting marshal moves away. Stonehewer looking for glory. He pulls away here. He's going to struggle from this line on the inside. Wiltshire picks it up. Great start by him. Through in 2nd place, and now in 1st is Jimmy Nielsen. Stonehewer relegated to last behind the Swede Michael Carlson, but out front Jimmy Nielsen now somehow picked up the right line, and Todd Wiltshire's going in pursuit, and if Wiltshire holds it here, it'll make 4 Aussies in the semis, but he's not there yet, because look at Stonehewer now trying to come through. Look at Carl Stonehewer, and he's not letting Wiltshire out of his sights, PC.
Yeah, Carl's up to 3rd now. He was a bad last on that 1st lap, but he's now chasing Todd Wiltshire. Todd isn't that particularly quick at the end of the straights, and Stoney seems to have him in his sights. Carl's still riding that inside line and seems to be making a lot of ground on that inside.
What to do behind the man out front, Jimmy Nielsen, who now looks set for a semi-final place, but Carl Stonehewer going backwards at this stage. Wiltshire now on the back of Jimmy Nielsen's wheel, and Wiltshire suddenly picking up some speed. And look at Wiltshire, he's going in pursuit of Jimmy Nielsen. He's now going round the outside. He's found some speed from somewhere, now cuts back on the inside. The challenge is there, and as they go across the line, I wouldn't want to separate those 2. I know exactly exactly who's made the first two positions there. They're Todd Wiltshire and Jimmy Nielsen. We'll have to wait for our referee to decide on that and see whether he's even got a photo finish camera, because Carl Stonehill battled well, beaten but not disgraced, can go home. He doesn't make the main event next time. He'll have to fight his way through, but he's given it.
Laram, Adams and Nielsen line up, and in the commentary position, Peter Collins and Tony Millard.
Remember, they get choice of gates here by their positions in the previous heats. Tony Ricardson goes to the inside in red. Mark Laram for Great Britain goes in gate 2 in blue. Lee Adams for Australia is in white in gate 3, and on the outside in yellow and black is the Swede involved in that controversial incident earlier on with Billy Hamill. That's Jimmy Nielsen. That's the race in some style. Let's see what happens here. Ricardson's the man on the inside. Our starting marshal having to be fussy here to get them up to line. Our referee, Wolfgang Glass, will put his button on the tapes, and away they go, and up they go, and on the inside, Tony Ricardson again to the fore. Mark Laram is working in blue in second place. Mark Laram tracking the world champion. Mark Laram will pick his line. Coming through into third place is Jimmy Nielsen. On the inside in white is Lee Adams, but Mark Laram is going off in pursuit of Tony Ricardson, but Ricardson is well nigh immaculate.
Yeah, fabulous riding from Ricardson. He's just so polished, his performance tonight. This is only his third ride. There's not an ounce or a scrap of dirt on him whatsoever. But Mark Laram here, he's taking some of that dirt from Ricardson's back wheel, but Mark will be fine if he can stay in this position, because this will put him into the grand final, but he's losing ground on Ricardson, there is no doubt about that.
Laram will be through to the second final, according to my reckoning, the only rider so to do, and Mark Laram is in pursuit of Tony Ricardson, but Ricardson, the favourite in the betting, is going to take some beating here, because he's stretching that lead round that bend, down the straight. He's fast, he's furious, he's classy, and certainly there as he takes the checkered flag. Third place there belongs to Jimmy Nielsen. Will have to be content for the consolation final. So too will Lee Adams in white from Australia. Only 2 Australians can now make that final. But a great night at the moment. Mark Laram is through to the final. Australians there on the outside. Certainly 3 Australians in this. Jason Crump goes from gate 2, Wiltshire gate 3, Sullivan gate 4. The poles on the inside.
Yeah, when you get to this stage, Tony, it's very difficult to actually pick who's going to come last, never mind who's going to win.
Competitive racing line has changed a little bit as the meeting's gone on. But here now, this is heat 22. Who will get that vital line? Thomas Golob will want to avoid being boxed in on the inside gate. Away they go. Golob is stuck there because coming across here in blue is Jason Crump. Crump tracked by Todd Wiltshire. Wiltshire picks it up and goes through to take the lead ahead of Jason Crump. Golob will have a go. Golob moves into second place. Crump go. Oh! What a pile up! Golob and Crump. The safety fence there. Jason Crump is furious. He believes that Thomas Golob piled into him. Golob will climb out from under the fence. Carnage unlimited here at Linköping. Peter Collins, problems for Thomas Golob there. I wonder who really caused it. Were they battling too hard going into that one?
Well, this is the ultimate test of this safety fence, because Crumpy there, I cannot believe Crumpy's walking away. That was a horrendous crash there. Thomas Golob went straight in with him. Very difficult to see really who was doing what, because they were just, it happened so quickly, but I believe that Golob, very desperate man, possibly has pushed Jason Crump straight into the fence there, but Crumpy really is in a lot of pain, we can see that.
Well, Jason Crump is being helped off. I'm sure that he cannot be the cause of that. It looks to me, I mean, there's Neil Street, his grandfather. There's Thomas Golob, who looks absolutely furious with what happened. But that safety fence has triumphed, Peter, because they both walked away. Let's see it again, because it didn't happen around here.
No.
It was at the tail end of that back straight.
We'll see what happens to Jason Crump there, leads round the first turn, but what a brilliant first corner from Todd Wiltshire. Just slips underneath Jason's back wheel to head the lead going down that back straight. But now just look at Thomas Golob. He rides straight into the path there of Jason Crump, hits him mid-turn. The pair of them go headlong into the fence, and look at Crumpy's bike there and Thomas Golob underneath. Fortunately, Thomas Golob had lost a lot of his speed by the time he collected Jason Crump's bike, but Jason did very well to walk away from that. Just look at Jason in the blue. He's struggling to miss that back wheel of the Golob. Suddenly takes off on that bike. Like we said before, you've got to get that bike down and get off that bike as quick as you can before you get to the fence. But Golob's been excluded. Golob has been excluded as the cause of this. This is the cause. He runs into the side of Jason Crump. Jason could not get off that bike, and I think if we had a conventional safety fence, Jason Crump would be in the ambulance by now. There is no doubt about that. Again, Thomas Golob has gone offline and just taken Jason Crump's line, and that was a much better decision from the referee. But there behind the fence, a security guard, one very lucky man.
Well, I have to say that look at that, Jason Crump certainly has some pain there. That we see the replay of him being brought to his feet, and really well
injured, and hopefully,
I mean, the way he pulls away, he's clear of it. We understand whilst watching this, the reports from the pits are that Jason Crump, and you see it there, how he hurt the base of his spine. That will be very uncomfortable bruising tomorrow, but he will ride, Jason Crump. He will be in pain. He's hurt the base of his spine, and you can see how he did it, Peter, but he will ride. Yeah,
we know Jason's a hard man. I mean, to walk away from that's unbelievable, and we know he'll be doing everything to ride in that rerun, and certainly by the reports that we're getting from the pits, he is going to go out, and there he is. Discussing things with Ollie Olsen, probably complaining about Thomas Golob's tactics, but he will get a bit of extra time. This is it again. We've seen this now again. Crumpy really catches the weight there of Thomas Golob's bike in the middle of the corner, and he really is stuck to that bike. We can see there when he goes into that air fence there, he's trying to get off it, but you see he couldn't get away quick enough.
I wonder what it is, PC, about Thomas Golob and these Australians, because our own Craig Boyce had a little bit of a problem with him a few years back, didn't he?
I don't really think that it matters what nationality you are, Tony. If you just happen to be in Thomas's way, mate, you're in trouble, and there's no doubt about that. I mean, I did say before the race started, Thomas will go on the grass if he has to, and certainly he took Jason's line totally there and ran straight in the side of Jason, and it just shows you how desperate Thomas Golob is to win this World Championship.
Well, it's looking pretty good with Thomas Golob out of that now for our own Mark Aram. I haven't even done the mathematics to work out what the points could be, but certainly with Mark Aram through to his second successive Grand Prix final. He was the winner in Sweden, of course.
And he never rode a bike for 5 years. He came back again in 97 and 98, and since then he's just been unbelievable.
There's 3 Australian flags on the screen in the semi-final to delight Craig Boyce back in our studio. Heat 22, remember. This is the second of the semi-finals. Riders look across, away they go. The competition there on the inside with Crump. Crump picks it up, but Wiltshire comes through again. Crump goes round the outside. Crump picks up the grip. Here they go. Crump is in front. Courage unlimited here for this man. It started so badly for him tonight. He's had a bad crash, a tape exclusion, but now he's leading the semi-final ahead of Todd Wiltshire in white, fellow countryman Ron Sullivan at the back. Sullivan trying to come through. Oh, it's going to be tight here. The meat in the sandwich was Todd Wiltshire.
Yeah, Todd's really in there racing and mixing it amongst the best boys here. There's no doubt about that. Todd really is in the thick of things. He's in second place right now. That is a final place for him. But just look at Ryan Sullivan on the inside. Ryan's pushing there to take that second from him.
Crumpy's going to be in the final with just over a lap to go, but the battle is joined in second place. It's Ding Dong Bell. Todd Wiltshire from Sydney. Ron Sullivan from Adelaide. Who's going to make that other place in the final? Sullivan in yellow comes again. Wiltshire in white. It's tight. Sullivan goes through. Wiltshire goes round the outside. Crump's in front. Who's going to grab that second place? Crump in blue gets it. And oh, that photo finish will be so desperately close in blue. Watch the photo finish. I'm not prepared to separate them. Todd Wiltshire and Ron Sullivan and Todd Wiltshire. But we know that Jason Crump is certainly through to the final. And what a hero he will be, because the story in tomorrow's papers, if he makes or takes the rostrum place, will be his survival from what could have been a horrendous crash.
Very close there. We'll have to get a photo finish on that again. But there, this is the start. The 3 Aussies here. They've grown up together in Australia on the Australian tracks. They know each other really, really well. They know each other's weaknesses and strengths, and certainly Todd Wiltshire, his strength is making starts, and certainly he's made a good start there, holding on to that inside line, and he comes down the back straight, but Jason Crump has taken the lead. But here on the last couple of laps, Ryan Sullivan's mounted a massive charge here on Todd Wiltshire. Todd's just about hanging on the outside. He resists the challenge there of Ryan Sullivan. Todd Wiltshire on the outside has just been pushed onto the dirt by Ryan. Ryan got it wrong there. He lifted in the middle of the corner and rode almost into Todd's racing line. We can see that. Todd just chops back up the inside, and that was a really quick bit of thinking there.
So, try and grab it if you can. You must be absolutely gutted. I mean, the cards really seem stacked against you. What, with being disqualified in your first heat and now this?
Yeah, I mean, it was my own mistake in the first race. You know, I jumped before the tapes went, but I felt that was a little bit of a over-ambitious move, you know, and it didn't really give me any option but to crash. And that part of the corner, when you crash, it's always big, and I'm just glad I got up and walked away, you know.
Well, you're certainly showing them that you can come back with style, winning that race after that crash.
Yeah, well, you know, the series didn't start off very well for me in Prague. I had a few problems, but luckily tonight it's going better, and you know, a nice A final win would be good.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Jason, and good luck in the final.
Thanks.
In the blue helmet colours, he's got the wrong helmet on, Ron Sullivan. He's got the yellow and black helmet. I can tell you Ron Sullivan goes in blue in gate 2, and he's off back to the pits to change that helmet colour. Thomas Golob goes in white from gate 3, and Lee Adams from the outside. That is the lineup for this, the consolation final. Remember, all place in the Grand Prix. Points make prizes, as Keith Hewitt said back in the studio. And here they go, away. This is the consolation final. In red now, picking it up is Jimmy Nielsen, but look, they'll pick up the drive and try to come through behind him. Nielsen, though, has stolen a march on the others, and now they have work to go, and leading them is Thomas Golob. Golob is not going to be outdone. He won the B final in Prague. He's going to try and win the B final here, but he's got to get past this Swede in front, Jimmy Nielsen. At the back, well, they've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, Jimmy's done all the hard work by making the start. Jimmy Nielsen's leading Thomas Golob, but Thomas, that was the part where he did that desperate move against Jason Crump earlier. Jimmy Nielsen keeps looking behind because I'm sure he's desperate to know where Thomas is. He doesn't want to leave himself open to attack because he certainly doesn't fancy going over that safety fence either.
I bet those security cars are standing back as that gets tied up front, because in the red it's Jimmy Nielsen, but Nielsen is going wider. As he goes wider, he goes faster. Golob is looking for space, looking for time, looking for position on the track. It's not all over yet, but here is the last lap now. Golob is making a challenge. Golob is trying. Golob is picking up speed. Golob is going, but Nielsen holds him, and only just. Jimmy Nielsen there, ahead, but only just of Thomas Golob to take that. Thomas Golob in white went all the way. The Poles are cheering that. I wonder if there'll be an argument about that. For my money, Jimmy Nielsen just...
No, they're all going to be really going for it, but I think that the best, certainly best 4 men on the night are in the final.
Here we are then, this is the final. Tony Ricardson on the inside. Ron Sullivan might argue with that. We're waiting now, there are problems for Jason Crump. And I wonder, I think the referee's put him on 2 minutes for Jason Crump. And let's hope he can make it. There he is, Jason Crump. I don't know if he's changing machinery, PC, but that looks a remarkably clean bike. Mind you, hasn't been headed all night.
Well, I mean, I'd be surprised if that bike that he rode and crashed with, whether that bike's still in one piece, but I suppose with the air fence, I mean, it could have saved it. It possibly isn't bent, so...
Plenty more action with us. Elite racing back in Britain, of course. It's Thursday where it's switched. Starting Marshall walks away. Referee Wolfgang Glass looks down. Up go the tapes and they fly from the inside. Tony Ricardson again. But look at the pressure from Jason Crump in blue. And pursued on the inside in white by Mark Laram. Laram's got a typical task on his hands here. But Crump out front. It's heading Ricardson. The first time Ricardson's been heading tonight. The battle is joined.
It is, and Mark Laram isn't finished, that's for sure. Just look at Mark here having to go at Tony Ricardson, and Rickardson's gone down.
I just wonder what the referee will do about that, because Golob might consider he was excluded for less. Ricardson down as Laram tried to go through. There'll be a row whatever happens here, because the referee has stopped it with Jason Crump way out front. Tony Ricardson is down on the track. Mark Laram came through into second place. I wonder, Peter Collins, what will Wolfgang Glass do, because that is controversial in the extreme.
Yeah, that's a similar incident to the Crump and Golob exclusion, and I feel that Mark Laram could easily be disqualified from this rerun.
By the cheers from the Swedish crowd, I think it must be that Mark Laram is excluded, but I wonder if Tony Ricardson will be fit enough to ride in this rerun. Tony Ricardson, the favourite. Will he get up? Will he ride? We're waiting confirmation to see if Mark Laram has been... Ricardson has been excluded. Now that is a shock, PC, and I'd like to see that again, because it's very difficult to understand quite why.
Well, you know, it could have been just one of those racing incidents. I mean, it certainly wasn't intentional for Mark Laram, and the pair of them just seemed to be running out of track, but it could have easily have gone the other way. But we can see it now. Ricardson's on the outside there. Jason Crump's in front in the blue. Into the picture now comes Mark Laram in the white and takes the wheel away from Tony Ricardson. I mean, I'm an Englishman, but I feel that Mark Laram was at fault there, and Tony Rickardson really got the rough end of the stick there, and I really feel that Mark has been exceptionally lucky to get away with this, and I think if I'd have been the referee, I would have excluded Mark Laram for that.
Peter, I'd like to see that alongside that Thomas Golub incident, because it doesn't seem any different what Mark Laram did to Tony Rickardson to what Thomas Golub did earlier.
No, you're right. We could see it even better from that view there from the air. Mark Laram definitely took Tony Rickardson's front wheel and his racing line and everything.
Well, the lads back in the studio watching it carefully. Craig Boyce, Gary Havelock, and our man Keith Hewin.
Should be excluded. You can't stop it.
Let's listen to this. Let's hear what these guys have to say, Gary. Excuse us. Well, this certainly looks to me like the riders are not accepting this decision. So the final men are not accepting this decision. There is Golub. He's in amongst the thick of it as well. So
It's got nothing to do with him. I don't know what he's doing. He should go and load his bikes up in his van.
well, the fact of the matter is, we've just heard Jason Crump say that you don't change decisions for a GP. I mean,
been like that, Gary.
Who? Jason? Thomas. I don't know why he's been like that.
well, Ollie Olsen, we saw something like this last year, I seem to remember. Coventry, wasn't it?
Right, yeah.
Absolutely.
Thomas saw a yellow light and decided he would stop because he missed the start. But if you stop a race on the second lap or whatever it was, you've got to stop it for a reason, and you've got to get through somebody. Mark's got to be out. You can't stop it and put all four back on the second lap. There's Norrie, Mark's mechanic.
Do it wrong. Very heated at the minute.
All of a sudden they're making big problems. You're going to end up with people ready to sue. It's all turning into a farce, unfortunately.
Well, we seem to be having a bit of a revolt here at Sweden for this final. Mark Laram looks to be refusing to ride. Gary Havelock is here in the studio with me, and Craig Boyce. There is Thomas Golub. He was excluded earlier on.
What is he doing?
Well, you'd want to be involved in it a little bit, wouldn't you? If you were excluded. No, he's not, but he was excluded. That kept him out of the final.
Yeah, I suppose.
Well, it looked to me like Thomas Golub was looking for support from Mark Laram there, which would only, in our view from here, exclude Mark Laram from the
He wants a
rerun.
replay of Heat 22, the second semi now.
Well, I have to say that this is doing Speedway's credibility not a lot of good at this moment in time.
It's like Craig said, you know, if you have a referee, his decision's got to be final. If you have a referee, maybe give him the chance of having a video replay.
There is the referee, Nicholas Glass, who has got to make some kind of decision here and get a grip on it.
Ollie's just made a mockery of it, you know, going back on his decision. Well, I don't think it was the right decision, Tony being excluded, but there's a certain thing called a rule book, and
Be interesting to hear what Peter Collins has to say in the commentary position when we go back to comms, because Peter obviously has been a world champion too, and he's fairly astute in these kind of things. That is Golub. We seem to be focusing a lot on Thomas Golub at the moment because he was excluded for something very similar a little bit earlier. If anything, he was dealt with, well, fairly harshly, but it would seem that the decision that's been made over Mark Laram and Tony Rickardson is completely wrong, in as much as that Laram definitely looked from our camera angles to have taken Tony Rickardson, the world champion, out. And the riders, we're told, from trackside are still refusing to ride in this final. They will not restart. So,
Be the lad.
no, that's for sure. I'm glad I was talking while we were
I
listening
better have
to
a
him.
word with him on Wednesday at King's Lynn, I think.
Yeah. Wash his mouth out.
Now there is talk, and this is live, of course. You're looking at live pictures here that Mark Laram has been excluded. There is now talk that Mark Laram has been knocked out.
Right, okay.
And Mark Laram has taken it on the nose. Mark Laram seems to agree with this decision.
Not a chance.
Gary Havelock here in the studio says not a chance.
No way Norrie will allow that.
And he's putting his...
Get ready.
He's not going to. If he comes to the tapes, I'm pulling back. Hey, if he's at the tapes, I'm turning around. Worry.
It's a tricky one, isn't it?
Nice and quiet. That was Jason Crump said that. We just heard him, along with an expletive.
Riders, Jason Crump in the second gate in blue, Mark Aram in white, Todd Wiltshire in yellow. Controversy will reign for a long while about that, but the referee's decision in the end has been the one that's counted, Peter, and that must be right.
Yeah, the referee was wrong, but you cannot go back on a decision, and certainly outsiders should not be able to change his decision, and that really should stand.
Disappointing for Tony Ricardson then, and the first major meeting on which there's been substantial betting, and we have controversy because Tony Ricardson was the 9-4 favourite, I have to tell you, with William Hills, and now, well, he's not going to win it. We have 3 riders, and Mark Laram will go to the top of the rostrum, presumably now, because Mark Laram was second in the previous Grand Prix, and that's great for the
decision, and the result, the decision he's made has had to stand.
Here we go then, this is the final, 3 riders remain. Remember, Ricardson gets 4th place. There in blue, picking it up is Jason Crump, who led the original time, pursued by Mark Aram in white. The battle is joined by Todd Wiltshire in 3rd place, but Jason Crump, after that horrendous crash, could take the Grand Prix, but the Ram will now mount a challenge. Quite a race.
Yeah, Mark was going to come around the outside, then Jason Crump looked across, saw Mark out wide. Now Jason's moved out wide, but you know, Crumpy's really got a tiger on his tail with Mark Laram, and Mark is never going to give up, and he is reeling Jason Crump in.
Here we are, halfway through then, the battle is joined. Jason Crump, twice winner of the British Grand Prix. Mark Aram, winner here last year. The Ram chasing Crump. Crump, the Australian, is out front. Todd Wiltshire eclipsed to the back, but with just over a lap to go. Crump has got his head down. Crump now looks back. The Ram looks down at his motor, but Jason Crump is going to take the Swedish Grand Prix. Mark Aram is going to be runner-up for the second Grand Prix running this year. Mark Aram won here last year, but Jason Crump is going to take this. Controversy will abound. The man who started in the safety fence, had a tape problem, has won this. Jason Crump takes the Swedish Grand Prix. Mark Aram in 2nd place. Todd Wiltshire in 3rd. What a Grand Prix. We've had just about everything here. And Jason Crump, whose night started with a tape exclusion, it could have gone horribly wrong, but now for him it's gone gloriously right. Waltzing Matilda will ring out for Jason Crump, who finishes 1st, ahead of Britain's Mark Aram. Mark Aram, of course, in the A final, twice the runner-up, and more Grand Prix to come. But Jason Crump came back almost literally there from that horrendous crash. Take the glory.
You're right, Tim. You can't believe that he's got up from that crash. I mean, the crash was horrendous, and he's come back with that back injury, and he's gone out there. He's withstood all the pressure of all these problems that were going on all around him. He led the first race before it was stopped. He's led the final, and he's won the final. Jason is always in the thick of